1001 Smartest Things Ever Said. Chapter 1. Life and Death and Some of What Happens in Between. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. There's no cure for birth and death, save to enjoy the interval. The future you shall know when it comes. Before then, forget it. One's own thought is one's world. What a person thinks is what he becomes. Time ripens all things. No man is born wise. A baby is God's opinion that life should go on. It is easier for a father to have children than for children to have a real father. The most important question in the world is, why is the child crying? If you can give your son or daughter only one gift, let it be enthusiasm. If there's anything we wish to change in our child, we must first examine it and whether it is not something that could be better changed in ourselves. Ain't no man can avoid being born average, but there ain't no man got to be common. I'm afraid we must make the world honest before we can honestly say to our children that honesty is the best policy. You can learn many things from children. How much patience you have, for instance. You can learn many things from children. How much patience you have, for instance. Acting childish seems to come naturally, but acting like an adult, no matter how old we are, just doesn't come easy to us. My father always said that there are 4 things a child needs. Plenty of love, nourishing food, regular sleep, and lots of soap and water. After that, what he needs most is some intelligent neglect. A birth is good time to begin anew, throwing away in old habits as you would old clothes and never putting them on again. Growth is the only evidence of life. The hardest thing to learn in life is which bridge to cross and which to burn. Some people are so much sunshine to the square inch. The most difficult thing in the world is to know how to do a thing and to watch someone else do it wrong without comment. If everybody minded their own business, the Duchess said in a hoarse growl, the world would go round a good deal faster than it does. Live a life as a monument to your own soul. If you're a card game and you don't know who the sucker is, you're it. If you're in a card game and you don't know who the sucker is, you're it. Too many people are thinking of security instead of opportunity. They seem more afraid of life than of death. We boil at different degrees. I feel more optimistic about a bright future for a man if he spent less time providing that he can outwit nature and more time tasting her sweetness and respecting her seniority. No man is a hero to his own valet. Men occasionally stumble over the truth, but most of them pick themselves up and hurry on as if nothing had happened. Service to others is the rent you pay for the room here on earth. And the best and safest thing to keep a balance in your life is to acknowledge the great powers around us and in us. And if you could do that and live that way, you are a really wise man. Life is great. It's a great big canvas. Throw all the paint you can on it. You gain strength, courage, and confidence by experiencing which you really stop to look fear in the face. Stop. Look fear in the face. You are able to say yourself, I've lived through this horror. I can take it the next thing that comes along. The point of music is discovered in every moment of playing and listening to it. It is the same, I feel, with great part of our lives. If we really utterly absorbed in improving them, we may forget altogether to live them. The point of music is discovered in every moment of playing and listening to it. Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. On the whole, human beings want to be good, but not too good, and not quite all the time. This above all to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night and day. Thou canst not be false to any man. Know how sublime a thing is to suffer and be strong. Be more concerned with your character than your reputation, because your character is what you really are, while your reputation is merely what others think you are. Education is the best provision for the journey to an old age. I'm never afraid of what I know. Never be haughty to humble. Never be humble to the haughty. It is extraordinary how extraordinary the ordinary person is. The majority of men are bundles of beginnings. Contemplate thy powers. Contemplate thy wants and thy connections. So thou shalt discover the duties of life and be directed in all thy ways. The childhood shows the man, and the morning shows the day. The young always have the same problem, how to rebel and conform at the same time. They have to solve this by defying their parents and copying one another. Who does not grow declines. There is no reason why the same man should like the same book at 18 and at 48. The man who views the world at 50 the same as he did at 20 has wasted 30 years of his life. If all misfortunes were laid in one common heap whence everyone must take an equal portion, most people would be contented to take their own and depart. Many people genuinely do not wish to be saints, and if possible that men who achieve or aspire as sainthood has never had much temptation to be a human being. Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant each day. If you spend a perfectly useful afternoon in a perfectly useful manner, then you have learned how to live. The man who insists upon seeing with perfect clearness before he decides never decides. Accept life and you must accept regret. He has great tranquility of heart, who cares neither for his praises nor the fault-finding of men. One reason why birds and horses are not unhappy is because they are not trying to impress other birds and horses. To say yes, if you have to sweat and roll up your sleeves and plunge both hands into life and up to the elbows, it's easy to say no, even if it means dying. A dead thing can go with the stream, but the only thing that can go up against it is alive. When you're younger, you get blamed for crimes you've never committed, and when you're older, you begin to get credit for virtues you've never possessed. It evens itself out. Life is an echo. What you send out, you get back. What do you give out? You give out is what you get. Life is playing a violin in public and learning the instrument as you go on. Life consists not in holding good cards, but in playing what you hold well. Life is an adventure in forgiveness. Life is the art of drawing sufficient conclusions with insufficient premises. If you can't make it better, you can laugh at it. Character is much easier kept than recovered. This is the first test of gentlemen, his respect for those who can be no possible value to him. The future comes one day at a time. Do well, and you will have no need for ancestors. The strongest man in the world is he who stands alone. All life is 6 to 5 against. The measurement of man is the way he bears up under misfortune. Hope springs eternal in the human breast. Man never is, but always to be blessed. A mature person is the one who does not think only in absolutes, who is able to be objective even when deeply stirred emotionally, who has learned that there are both good and bad in all people and all things, and who walks humbly and deals charitably with the circumstances of life. The moment we begin and fear opinions of others, hesitate to tell the truth that is in us, then from motives of policy are silent when we should speak. The divine floods of light and life no longer flow into our souls. It is not only for what we do that we are held responsible, but what for we do not do. People travel to wonder the heights of mountains, at the huge waves of the seas, and long courses of the rivers, and vast compasses of the ocean, the circular motion of the stars, and yet they pass by themselves without even wondering. Time is the wisest counselor. Happy to the man, and happy to him alone. He can say today is his own. He who's secure within can say, tomorrow do thy worst, for I've lived today. By fair and foul, or rain or shine, the joys I possessed, in spite fate are mine. Not heaven itself upon past has power, but he has been, have had my hour. The older I grow, the more I distrust the familiar doctrine, the age bring wisdoms. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live with life that you've imagined, and as you simplify your life, the laws of the universe will be simpler. I do not believe in the sheer suffering teaches and suffering alone taught. All the world will be wise. Since everyone suffers, to suffering must be added mourning, understanding, peace, love, openness, and the willingness to remain vulnerable. Before I can live with other folks, I've got to live with myself. The only thing that doesn't abide by majority rules is a person's conscience. Never feel self-pity. The most destructive emotion there is self-pity. How awful to be caught up in the terrible squirrel cage of self. A halo has fall only a few inches to be a noose. A halo has to fall only a few inches to be a noose. If you cry because the sun is gone out of your life, your tears will prevent you from seeing the stars. A man's heart away from nature becomes hard. Lack of respect for growing, living things soon leads to lack respect for humans too. Happiness is always a byproduct. It's probably a matter of temperament, for anything you know is to be a glander, but it's not something that can be demanded from life, and if you are not happy, you'd better stop worrying about it. Live your questions now. Leave your questions now, and perhaps even without knowing it, you will live long enough some distant day into your answers. Be grateful for luck. Pay the thunder no mind. Listen to the birds, and don't hate nobody. May you have a strong foundation. When the winds of change shift, you may be young forever. May you have a strong foundation, and when the winds of change shift, and may you be forever young. Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path, and leave a trail. Growth demands a temporary surrender of security. The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. Reflect upon the present blessings from which every man has plenty, not on your past misfortunes of which all men have some. Never let yesterday use up too much of today. I can resist everything except temptation. I succeed in life. You need two things, ignorance and confidence. Expect nothing. I leave frugally on surprise. A man cannot be too careful in his choice of enemies. A great secret of success is to go through life as a man who never gets used up. Just trust yourself. Then you know how to live. A man of good will, with a little effort to believe in his own powers, can enjoy a deep, tranquil, rich life, provided he go his own way. To live one's own life still, the best way of life, always was and always will be. If only I may grow firmer, simpler, quieter, warmer. You must outdistance from which you're running after. You must outdistance that which is running after you, but not what is running inside of you. The existence of ours is transient as autumn clouds. To watch the birth and death begins is like looking in the movements of a dance. A lifetime is a flash of lightning in the sky, rushing by like a torrent down a steep mountain. This existence of ours is as transient as an autumn cloud. To watch the birth and death begin like looking in the movements of a dance. A lifetime is a flash of lightning in the sky, rushing by like a torrent down a steep mountain. We are here to laugh, and the odds to live our lives so well that death will be tremble to take us. We are here to laugh at the odds and live our lives so well that death will tremble to take us. Death is nothing to us. Since we are, death has to come. And when death has come, we are not. So death is nothing to us. Death is nothing to us. Since we are, death has to come. And when death comes, we are not. We are no more the candles burning in the wind. We are no more than candles burning in the wind. Live so that you wouldn't be ashamed to sell the family parrot to the town gossip. All would live long and none would be old. It is a self-limitation to master first shows himself. In the long run, we shape our lives and we shape ourselves. The process never ends until we die, and the choices we make ultimately are our own responsibility. The mere process of growing old together will make the slightest acquaintance seem a bosom friend. We are never too old to be what we might have been, and if I knew I was going to live this long, I'd have to take better care of myself. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately in front of only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what they had to teach. And not only when I came to die, I discovered that I had not lived. People, some good, some bad, but in the long run, we come out even. The trouble with quotes about death is that 99.999% of them are made up by people who are still alive. As well as spent day brings happy sleep, as sort of life will spell brings happy death. In the artist's life, death is perhaps not much most difficult thing. In an artist's life, death is perhaps not the most difficult thing. Death, the last sleep? No, it's not the final awakening. Lord, is how the day passes. It's like a life, so quickly that you don't watch it and so slowly if we do. Lord, how the day passes. It's like a life. So quickly when we don't watch it and slowly if we do. I've discovered that all human evil comes from this man, a man's being unable to sit still and quiet in a room alone. It is said an Eastern monarch once charged his wise men to invent him a sentence to be ever in view and which should be true and appropriate in all times and situations. They presented him the words, and this too shall pass away. No man is an island entire of itself. No man is an island entire of itself, and every man is a piece of the continent, and a part of the main, if a clod be washed away by the sea. Europe is less, as well as the prominency were, as well if were a manner of thy friends, and thine own were. Any man's death diminishes me, because I'm involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know to whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main, and the clod be washed away by the sea. Europe is the less, as well as the prominency were, and well if the manner of the friends of thy own were. And a man's death diminishes me, because I'm involved with mankind, and there is never to see those whom a bell tolls. It tolls for thee. I want to live my life so that my nights are not full of regrets. I want to live my life so that my nights are not full of regrets. I promise to keep on living as though I expect to live forever. Nobody grows old merely by living a number of years. People grow old by deserting their ideals. Years will wrinkle the skin, but to give up wrinkles the soul. Don't give up. May you live all the days of your life. Live simply that others may simply live. Keep on trucking. Hope is a good breakfast, but it is a bad supper. My advice to you is not to inquire why or whither, but just to enjoy your ice cream while it's still on your plate. That's my philosophy. Enjoy the spring of love and youth. To some good angel leave the rest. For time will teach soon the truth. There are no birds in last year's nest. Know the true value of time. Snatch, seize, and enjoy every moment of it. No idleness, no laziness, no procrastination. Never put off till tomorrow what you can do today. Because if you like it today, you could do it again tomorrow. Let us look back in anger, for not forward in fear, but around in awareness. Experience is a hard teacher. She gives the test first and lessons afterwards. No man is rich enough to buy back his past. In times like these, it helps to recall that there have always been times like these. Make voyages, attempt them. There's nothing else. The best portion of a good man's life is his little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and love. The years between 50 and 70 are the hardest. You've always been asked to do things, and yet you're not deceptive enough to turn them down. Men are like wine. Some turn to vinegar, and some best improve with age. Grow old along with me. The very best is yet to be. The only man who behaves sensibly in my tailor, he's only measured anew every time he sees me. Whilst all rest go with the old measurements, and expect them to fit me. The only man who behaves sensibly in my tailor, He takes my measure anew every time he sees me. Whilst all rest go on with the old measurements and expect them to fit me. The old secret of a long, fruitful life is to forgive everybody, everything, every night before you go to bed. Old age ain't no place for sissies. Don't look back, something might be gaining on you. Don't hurry, don't hurry. You are here for a short visit, so be sure to stop and smell the flowers. Live as long as you can, die when you can't help it. A person who will be called account of Judgment Day for every permissible thing he might have enjoyed, but he did not. Millions long for immortality, who do not know what to do with themselves on a rainy Sunday afternoon. Old age is like everything else. To make a success of it, you've got to start young. Since time is a person who we can overtake when he is in his past, let us honor him with the mirth and cheerfulness in the heart while he is passing. Since time is not a person we can overtake when he is past, let us honor him with the mirth and cheerfulness of heart while he is passing. I shall tell you a great secret of my friend. I shall tell you a great secret, my friend. Do not wait for the last judgment. It takes place every day. To be idle is a short road to death, and to be diligent is a way of life. Foolish people are idle, wise people are diligent. I have an irrepressible desire to live till I can be assured that the world is a little better from my have living in it. Man is the only animal that blushes or needs to. The tragedy of life is not much that men suffer, but rather what they miss. The greater thing in life is to die young, to delay as long as possible. I like living. I have sometimes been wildly, despairingly, acutely miserable, racked with sorrow. But through it all, I still know quite certainly that I just love to be alive. To be alive is a grand thing. Taking joy in life is a woman's best cosmetic. The greatest pleasure of life and the greatest pleasure in life is doing what people say you cannot do. The difference between life and movies is a script has to make sense and life doesn't. The difference between life and the movies is that a script has to make sense and life doesn't. Never rest contented with the circle of ideas, but always be certain that the wider one is still possible. It's harder to have patience with people who say, there is no death and death doesn't matter. There is death and whatever is matters. And whatever happens has consequences, and that they are irrevocable and irreversible. You might as well say the birth doesn't matter. Judge a man by his questions rather than his answers. Things are seldom what they seem. Good advice is something a man can give, and he is too old to set a bad example. The bitterest tears shed over graves are the words left unsaid and deeds left undone. The bitterest tears shed over graves are the words left unsaid and deeds left undone. God not only plays dice, but he throws them in the corner where you can't see them. There is, therefore, only a categorical imperative. It is, act only according to the maxim by which you can at the same time will and should become a universal law. The wonderful it is that nobody needs to wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. What the superior man seeks in himself, what the mean man seeks in others. Courage is contagious. When a brave man takes a stand, the spines of others are stiffened. Lying to ourselves is more deeply inframed than lying to others. Cowards die many times deaths, and many deaths before. The valiant never taste death but once. Hateful to me in the gates of Hades is the man who hides this thing in his heart and speaks into another. The vision will become clearly when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who look inside awaken. It is human nature to think wisely and act foolishly. Everything should be as simple as it is, but not simpler. A man has to live with himself and should not see it that always has good company. Wealth and children are the adornment of this present life. But good works, which are lasting and better in the sight of thy Lord, are recompense and better as to hope. If you enjoy, it is not difficult to keep the sense of wonder. Words may think a thought. Music makes me feel a feeling. A song makes me feel a thought. Worry like a rocking chair. Worry is like a rocking chair. It will give you something to do, but it won't get you anywhere. Silence is an argument carried out on other means. To do just the opposite is also to form an imitation. The gentle mind of gentle deeds is known, for the man is nothing so betrayed as by his manners. He will anger you. He who angers you conquers you. Believe not some old manuscripts are produced. Believe not because it is your national belief. Believe that something has made the belief in your childhood. But reason truth out. After you've analyzed it, when you find it, it'll do one and all that believed in it. Live up to it and help others live up to it. The line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. And who is willing to destroy a piece of his own heart? He will forgiveth and reconcile unto his enemy, shall receive a reward from God, for he loveth not the unjust doers. Let us suppose you might be, as we say, a white paper, void all characters without any ideas. How come it should be furnished? To this I answer in one word, from experience. He that troubleth his own house shall inherit the wind. Every one can master a grief, but that he has. As although the world I've rambled, I've seen lots of funny men. Some will rob you with a six-gun, and some with a fountain pen. As blushing with sometimes he whore to pass a virtuous woman, to modestly make a fool seem a man of sense. As blushing will sometime make a whore pass for a virtuous woman, so modesty may make a fool seem like a man of sense. Without music, life is a journey through a desert. Sooner or later, we all discover that the important moments in life are not the advertised ones, not the birthdays, the graduations, the weddings, not the great goals achieved. The real milestones are less prepossessing. The real milestones are less prepossessing. They come to a door of memory announced. Stray dogs of amble in, sniff around a bit and simply never leave. Our lives are measured by these. Use the health, even to the point of wearing it out. That is it. That's what it's for. Use your health to the point of wearing it out. Spend all that you can before you die. Spend all that you have before you die, and do not outlive yourself. Whoever destroys a single life is guilty as though he had destroyed an entire world, and whoever rescues a single life earns as much merit as though he can be rescued to an entire world, as if he rescued an entire world. Age is a question of mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. For all the sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest are these: it might have been. As blushing will sometimes make a whore pass for a virtuous woman, so modesty may make a fool seem like a man of sense. Without music, life is a journey through a desert. Sooner or later, we will discover the important moments in life are not the advertised ones, not the birthdays or the graduations, weddings, or the great goals achieved. The real milestones are less prepossessing. They come from a door of memory unannounced. Stray dogs that amble in, sniff around, and simply never leave. Our lives are measured by these. Use your health, even to the point of wearing it out. That is what it's for. Spend all that you have before you die, and do not outlive yourself. Whoever destroys a single life is guilty of as though he destroyed an entire world. Whosoever rescues a single life earns as much merit as though he had rescued an entire world. Age is a question of mind over matter. If you don't matter, it doesn't mind. For all the sad words, tongue or pen, the saddest words are it might have been. A thing is not necessarily true because a man dies for it. Wrinkles of those should indicate that there were smiles and where smiles have been. Growing old is no more than a bad habit that a busy person has not time to form. If you think about disaster, you will get it. Broad about death, and you hasten your dismiss. Think positively, masterfully, confident in faith, and life becomes more secure, more fraught with action, richer in achievement and experience. The act of dying is also one of the acts of life. The moving finger writes, and having right. Move on, nor all pity or wit shall lure back and cancel half a line, nor in all your tears wash out a word of it. Old age is far more than white hair, wrinkles, and feeling that it's too late and the game is finished. It's a stage that belongs to the rising generations. The true evil is not weakening of the body, but the indifference of the soul. When you're young and you fall off of a horse, you may break something, but when you're my age and you fall off a horse, you splatter. When the great soccer comes to write against your name, he marks not to won or lost, but how you played the game. A lifetime of happiness. No man alive can bear it, and would hell on earth. A lifetime of happiness, no man could bear it. It would be hell on earth. Old minds are like old horses. You must exercise them if you wish to keep them in a working order. I wasted time, and now doth time waste me. Anyone who can keep the ability to see beauty as every age of life really never grows old. Life is like a game of cards. The hand you are dealt is determinism of the way you play it. It is a free will. You can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the dark. And we shouldn't consider every day lost from which we have not danced in at least once. And we should carry every truth false of which has accompanied by at least one laugh. We do not see things as they are. We see them as we are. The happy man is not he who seems thus to others, but who seems thus to himself. When we betray somebody else, we also betray ourselves. No matter how dark things seem to be, and they actually are, raise your sights and see the possibilities. Always see them, and they're always there. In order for 3 people to keep a secret, 2 must be dead. In the majority of the sane human lives were no problem of sex at all. There is no problem of marriage at all. There is no problem of temperament at all. And these problems are dwarfed and rendered ridiculous by the standing problem of being moderately honest, a moderately honest man, and paying the butcher. 3 o'clock is always too late and too early for anything you want to do. 3 o'clock is always too late and too early for anything you ever want to do. My hopes are not always realized, but I always hope. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. All is for the best, and the best is all possible worlds. Whatever befalls earth befalls the sons and daughters of all earth. We do not wave a web of life, we merely strand it. And what we do with the web, we do to ourselves. The world is full of magical things, patiently waiting to wits and grow sharper. The world is full of magical things, patiently waiting for our wits to grow sharper. The best remedy for anger is delay. Live well, it is the greatest revenge. A ship ought to not be held by the anchor, nor by its single rope. I keep my ideas because in spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. The community is like a ship. Everyone ought to be prepared to take the helm. Sometimes our light goes out, but it is blown into a flame by another human being. Each of us owes deepest thanks for those who have to rekindle this light. Life does not cease by funny men that die, by when people die, but for more when it ceases to be serious when people laugh. Desire is half of life. Desire is half of life. Indifference is half of death. Life is pleasant. Death is peaceful. It's the transition that's troublesome. The great consolation of life is say that what one thinks. The greatest consolation of life is to say what one thinks. Men fear death. As children go to the dark and fear the dark, as natural fear in children increases with tales, so is the other. If man hasn't discovered something that he will live for, he isn't fit to live. Death is not extinguishing the light. It is putting out the lamp because dawn has come. Be of good cheer about the death, and know this is the truth. And no evil can happen to good men, neither their life after death. I'd said to life, I would rather hear death speak, and life raised her voice a little higher and said, you hear me now? The riders in a race do not stop short when they reach the goal. There is a little finishing center before that they come to the standstill. The canter that brings the standstill need to be not only coming to rest. It cannot be while you're still alive. There cannot be a standstill while you're still alive. Our fear of death is like the fear of summer will be short. But when we have our own swing of pleasure or feel our fruit in our swelter of heat, we can say that we've had our day. Sweet is a grief well ended. Sweet is a grief well ended. To be able to back upon one's life and satisfaction and to live twice. To be able to look back upon one's life and satisfaction is to live twice. The longer I live, the more beautiful life becomes. It's not over until it's over. When I look back at all the words, I remember the story of an old man who said to his deathbed that he had a lot of trouble in his life, most in which he'd never happened. Neither fire nor wind, birth or death can erase a good deed. Death ends a life, not a relationship. I decline to accept the end of man. It is easy enough to say that a man is immortal because he will endure, and when the ding-dong of doom has clanged and faded him from the worthless rock hanging tideless to the last red dying evening, the evening will be there, will still be more sound. One more sound. That is the punny inexhaustible voice, still talking. I refuse to accept this. I believe that a man will not merely endure, he will prevail. He is immortal, not because he lives alone amongst the creatures as an exhaustible voice, but because he has a soul, a spirit capable of compassion and sacrifice and endurance. Fear not for the future. Weep not for the past. I speak truth, not much as I would, but as much as I dare, and I dare a little more, and I grow a little older. How far you go into life depends on being tender with the young, compassionate with the aged, sympathetic with striving, and tolerant of the weak and strong, because someday in your life, you will have been all of these. I always remember in an epitaph, which is a cemetery tombstone in Arizona, it says, "Here lies Jack Williams. He done his damnedest." I think that's the greatest epitaph a man can have. In the end, everything is a gag. Chapter 2, Love and Friendship. What is a friend? It's a single soul dwelling in two bodies. Always be a little kinder than necessary. People are unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Love them anyway. To err is human. To forgive, divine. To err is human. To forgive, infrequent. A person is only as good as what they love. And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. To give counsel as well as to take it as feature or true friendship. Thousands of candles can be lighted from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases by being shared. Kind hearts are more than coronets, and simple faith than normal blood. Laughter is the closest distance between two people. A heart can be broken, but it will keep beating just the same. Love is like war, easy to begin but very hard to stop. It is well when judging a friend and remember that he is judging you with the same godlike and superior impartiality. Though you break your heart, men will go on as before. I count myself and nothing else so happy as a soul remembering my good friends. A heart has reasons of which reasons knows nothing. Have a heart that never hardens, a temper that never tires, and a touch that never hurts. Few men have the natural strength to honor a friend's success without envy. There might be some credit in it being jolly. Kind words do not cost much. They never blister the tongue or lips. They often make people good-natured. They also produce their own images on men's souls, and beautiful image it is. And a beautiful image it is. To give pleasure to a single heart by a single kind act is better than 1,000 head bowings in prayer. Goodness does not consist in greatness, but greatness in goodness. How should we like it? We're stars to burn. With a passion for us we could not return. If equal affection there cannot be, let more loving one be me. Let the more loving one be me. Love is greater. Love is a great beautifier. If only you have only one smile in you, give it to the people you love. Don't be sure at home. Then go out into the street and start grinning. Good morning at total strangers. Without friends, no one would choose to live, though he had all other goods. An insincere and evil friend is more to be feared than a wild beast, and a wild beast may wound your body, but an evil friend will wound your mind. It is a mood. It is a good thing to be rich, and a good thing to be strong, but it is a better thing to be loved by many friends. It's sad when someone you know becomes someone you knew. The friend you know you better in a moment. Your friends will know you better in the first moment you meet than your acquaintances will know you in a lifetime. It is pardoning that we are pardoned. In those whom I like, I can find no common denominator. In those who I love, I can. They all make me laugh. In those whom I like, I can find no common denominator. In those whom I love, I can. They all make me laugh. Those who bring sunshine to our lives are the others who cannot keep it from themselves. The person who tries to live alone will not succeed as a human being. His heart withers if it does not answer to another heart. His mind shrinks away if his heart only echoes in his own thoughts and finds no other inspiration. One of the surest evidences of friendship is that an individual can display to another is telling him gently of fault. If another can excel in it, is listening to such a disclosure with a gratitude and amending the error. Don't smother each other. No one can grow in the shade. I've always felt that the great high privilege, relief, and comfort friendship was only one had to explain nothing. Friendship is like money, easier made than kept. You are to forgive your happinesses and your successes only if the generous consent is to share them. Love is an irresistible desire to be irresistibly desired. If you want to win friends, make it a point to remember them. If you want to remember my name, you pay me a subtle compliment. You indicate that I have made an impression on you. Remember my name and you add to my feelings of importance. If you would stand well with a great mind, leave him with a favorable impression of yourself. If with a little mind, leave him with a favorable impression of himself. You shall judge a man by his foes as well as by his friends. As old wood to best to burn, old horses to ride, old books to read, old wine to drink, so as old friends must truly and trusty to use. Advise your friends to like the weather. Some is good, some of them are bad. A friend is a person whom I may be sincere before him and I may think aloud. A loving heart is the truest wisdom. If I can't stop one heart from breaking, if I can ease one pain, then my life will not have been in vain. The glory of friendship is not the outstretched hand. It's not kindly a smile, nor just a joy of companionship. It is a spiritual inspiration that comes to one when you discover that someone else believes in you, and is willing to trust in you with a friendship. One is the very crazy when one is love. One is very crazy when in love. Love is it in the essence of spiritual fire. Love in its essence is a spiritual fire. Love is a hole in the heart. Ah, when to the heart of man was I ever less of a treason, to go with the drift of things, yield with the grace to reason, and bow and accept at the end of love or a season. Fill each other's cups with a drink, not from one cup. Give another of your bread to eat from the same loaf. Sing and dance together and be joyous, and let each of you be alone. Even in the strings of the lute or alone, though they quiver with the same music. A true friend is the greatest of all blessings, in which we take to least care of all the acquire. Friendship is born to the moment when one person says to another, "What, you two? I thought I was the only one." We must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is to devoid the power to forgive is to devoid the power to love. There is some good in the worst of us and some evil in the best of us. Love is a canvas furnished by nature and embroidered by imagination. We don't love qualities, we love persons, sometimes by reason of their defects as well as their qualities. The most I can do for my friend is simply to be his friend. Listening to the magnetic and strange thing, a creative force. The friend who listens to us is the one who we move towards. When we listen to, it creates us and makes us unfold and expand. Folds shared as comfortable as boredom slippers is easy to slip into. Faults shared are as comfortable as bedroom slippers and easy to slip into. I have learned that to be with those who I like is enough. Hold a true friend with both of your hands. Absence is true love when you wind to the fire extinguishes the small, it enkindles the great. A kiss of rosy dots over the eye of loving. A kiss is a rosy dot over the eye in loving. Immature love says, I love you because I need you. Mature love says, I need you because I love you. True friendship I like sound of health, the value of a seldom known until be lost. A real friend is the one who walks and the rest of the world walks out. Don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. But walk beside me, be my friend. The deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. Forget injuries, never forget kindness. Kindness is more important than wisdom, and the recognition of this is the beginning of wisdom. Tell me to whom your friends are, and I will tell you who you are. Let me not be the marriage of true minds. Admit impotence. Love is not love, which alters when the alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is never fixed mark that looks in the temper of never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, from wounds unknown, although the height be taken. Love's not time's fool, dot rosy lips and cheeks. Within his heading sickle's compass came. Love alters not with his brief hours weeks, but bears even at the edge of doom. And to be error upon to be proved, a never writ, nor a man ever loved. Familiar acts are beautiful through love. No man is wise enough by himself. A friend is present. You give yourself. A friend is a present that you give yourself. A friend is someone who can sing you the song of your heart when you've forgotten it. The greatest good you can do with another is just to share your riches, but to reveal to him his own riches. 'Tis better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all. We cannot do all great things, but we can do small things with great love. The love and win is the best things. To love and lose is the next best. To love and win is the best thing. My friends is one who takes me for what I am. Chapter 3, Success and Ways to Achieve It. Success is the ability to go from one failure to another without no loss of enthusiasm. The obstacle is the path. You have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own and you know what you know. And you are the guy you'll decide where to go. Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. It's not enough to be busy. The question is what are we busy about? The indispensable first step to getting the things you want out of life is this. Decide what you want. All good things which exist are fruits of originality. The person you make success of living is the one who sees the goal steadily and aims for it unswervingly. The best way to make your dreams come true is to wake up. In the field of observation, chance favors the prepared mind. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Things return out for the best. Things turn out best for the people who make the best of the way things turn out. Any activity becomes creative when the doer cares about doing it right or doing it better. And any activity becomes creative when the doer cares about doing it right or better. 80% of success is just showing up. Be wiser than other people if you can, but do not tell them so. No illusion is more crucial than the illusion of great success, but huge money by the immunity of common ills of mankind, such as cars that won't start. No illusion is more crucial than the illusion that great success, huge money buy you immunity from the common ills of mankind, such as cars that won't start. When in doubt, win the trick. There is only one boss, the customer, and he can fire anybody and everybody in the company from the chairman on down simply by spending his money somewhere else. If it be now, 'tis not to come, it's not to... If it not to become, then we'll know now, it's be now, yet it will come, the readiness is all. If it be now, 'tis not to come. If it not to come, it will be now. If it be not now, yet it will come. The readiness is all. The secret of success managing is to keep the 5 guys who hate you away from the 4 guys who haven't made up their minds. Measure twice, cut once. Take calculative risks. That is quite different from being rash. In reading the living of great men, in reading the lives of great men, I found that the first victory they won was themselves. The victory of themselves, their self-discipline, with all of them came first. Never think you're not good enough for yourself. A man should never think that. People will take you very much at your own reckoning. There are 2 things to aim at in life. First, to get what you want, and then to go after it and to enjoy it. The only wisest of the mankind achieve the second. It is necessary for us to learn from other mistakes. You will not live long enough to make them all for yourself. A wise man sees as much as he ought, not much as he can. Without leaps of imagination or dreaming, we lose the excitement of possibilities. Dreaming, after all, is a form of planning. The man who trims himself to suit everybody will soon whittle himself away. The dreadful burden of having nothing to do. Some people believe in holding and hanging that there are signs of great strength. However, there are times in which it makes much more strength to know when to let go and then to do it. The greater danger for most of us lies in setting our aim too high and falling short, but the setting our aim too low and achieving our mark. The cure of boredom is curiosity. There is no cure for curiosity. With self-discipline, most anything is possible. I don't know the key to success, but I know the key to failure is trying to please everybody. I've always tried to turn every disaster into an opportunity. He who does not risk will never drink champagne. Ability is sexless. For most of history, Anonymous was a woman. Fortune favors the brave. I'm a great believer in luck, and I find that the harder I work, the more I have of it. One of the advantages of being disorderly is that one is constantly making exciting discoveries. The bravest are surely those who have the clearest vision of what's before them, glory and danger alike, and yet notwithstanding go out and meet it. Never let your head hang down. Never give and sit down grieve. Find another way, and don't pray when it rains if you don't pray when the sun shines. You'll always have 100% of the shots. You'll always miss 100% of the shots you don't take. There's hardly anything in the world that some man can't make little worse or sell a little cheaper, and the people who consider price only the man's lawful prey. Oh, the tangled webs we weave when we practice to deceive. Nothing is waste of time if you use the experience wisely. Nothing is a waste of time if you use the experience wisely. What lies behind us is what lies before us, are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. Work expands to fill the time available of its completion. If anything can go wrong, it will. I've not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that it won't work. Formula for success. Under-promise and over-deliver. The best way to escape for a problem is to solve it. Creative man is to motivate the desire to achieve, not by the desire to beat others. Know from whence you came. If you know whence you came, there's absolutely no limitation from where you can go. There's no disinfectant like success. Nothing succeeds like success. What is harder than a rock and softer than water, yet soft water hollows out hard rock? Persevere. Prosperity is a great teacher. Adversity is greater. If I have seen further than others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants. The spirit that will to win. The spirit is the will to win, and the will to excel are things to endure. These qualities are so much more important than the events that occur. One of the lessons of history is nothing is often a good thing to do and always a clever thing to say. It takes less time to do the right thing than it does to explain why you did wrong. The speed of a runaway horse counts for nothing. No one gets far unless he accomplishes the impossible at least once a day. Perfection is achieved not when there is nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to take. It is true to greatness to have one's frailty of a man and the security of God. Success is how high you bounce when you hit the bottom. A bank is a place where you land the umbrella of fair weather and ask for it back to when it begins to rain. The often discovers what will I do. We often discover what we'll do by finding out what we'll not do. He's fine never made a mistake, has never made a discovery. We often discover what we'll do by finding what we'll not do. And probably he who never made a mistake never made a discovery. One thing life taught me is if you are interested and you never have to look for new interests. One thing life taught me is if you are interested, you never have to look for new interests. They come to you. When you are genuinely interested in one thing, it would always lead to something else. To do a good thing in the world, first you must know who you are and what gives you the meaning of your life. You don't know luck into the things as much you'd like to think you do. You build step by step, whether it's friendships or opportunities. You don't just luck into things that you do as you think you do. You actually build into things by step, whether it's friendship or opportunities. Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. The inconvenience. An inconvenience is only an adventure wrongly considered, as an adventure is an inconvenience rightly considered. It is the part of a wise man to keep himself to a day for tomorrow and not to venture all his eggs in one basket. To please everybody is impossible where I undertake it. I should probably please nobody. During my 87 years, I have witnessed a whole succession of technological revolutions, but none of them has done away with the need of character in the individual or the ability to think. When clouds form the skies, we now know is rain and follow, but we must not wait for it. Nothing from which you achieve by attempting to interfere with the future before the time is ripe. Patience is needed. I keep away from people who try to belittle my ambitions. Small people always do that, but what really great make a feel for you too. We could become great. A great solution applied with vigor now is better than a perfect solution applied 10 minutes later. Being a hero about the shortest lived profession is on earth. Being a hero is about the shortest lived profession on earth. Once a day came to a fork in the road and I saw a Cheshire cat in a tree. "Which road should I take?" she asked. "Where do you want to go?" was his response. I don't know, Alice answered. Then the cat said, then it doesn't matter. Spoon feeding is a long run, teaches us nothing but to shape the spoon. Spoon feeding is a long run, teaches us nothing but the shape of the spoon. If I've ever made a valuable discoveries, it has been owing more impatient attention than any other one talent. If a man will begin with his certainties, he shall end in doubts. But if he will be content to begin with doubts, he shall end with certainties. I only use the brains that I have. But I also use the brains that I can borrow. They say that a time changes things, but you actually have to change them yourself. It is paradoxical, profoundly true, and important principle of life that the most likely way to reach a goal is to be aiming not only at the goal itself, but some serious, more ambitious goal beyond it. It is a bad plan that admits of no modification. It takes as much energy to wish as it does to plan. One of the annoying things about believing in free will and individual responsibility is the difficulty of finding somebody to blame your problems on. And when you find somebody, it's remarkable how often his picture turns up is in your driver's license. Who dares wins. It doesn't matter how slowly you go along, so long as you do not stop. I've learned much for the teachers, much from my books, more from my books and mostly from my mistakes. A wise man will more than opportunities than he finds. A wise man will make more opportunities than he finds. If only tools you have a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Next to knowing when size is opportunity, the next important thing is to know when to forego the advantage. Lead, follow, or get out of my way. The manner of which man chooses to gamble indicates character or his lack of it. If you wish the world to advance, your merits you're bound to enhance. You must stir up and stump it and blow your own trumpet, or trust me, you haven't a chance. Leadership is solving problems. The day soldiers stop bringing you their problems is the day you've stopped leading them. They've either lost confidence in you that you can help or concluded that you do not care. Either case is a failure of leadership. You can always get where you want, but you have to try something that you might find. You get what you need. Success is dependent on effort. You can't always get what you want, but if you try something, you might find that you'll get what you need. People cannot be managed. Inventories can be managed, but people must be led. If you believe you can, you probably can. If you believe you won't, you're most assured believe in the ignition switch that gets that off the launching pad. It doesn't matter if a cat's black or white, as long as it catches mice. A good objective of leadership is to help those who are doing poorly to do well, is to help those who are doing well to even do better. Clear your mind. Can't. Giving your son a skill is better than giving him 1,000 pieces of gold. Give every man the ear, but few the voice. Take a man's sincere to reserve the judgment. Costly of habits thy purse can't buy, neither to borrow nor lender be. For loan loses both itself and a friend. The borrower dulls the edge of husbandry. There's so much things of self-made person. There's so much. There is no such thing as a self-made person. Everyone who's ever done a kind deed or has spoken one kind word of encouragement to us has entered into a makeup of a character and of our thoughts, as well as our success. Difficulty, my burthen, is a nurse of greatness, a harsh nurse whose roughly rocks her foster children into strength and athletic proportion. If nothing has ever changed, there'd be no butterflies. Progress, far from considering to change, depends on retentiveness. When we change our absolute, there remains to being improved no direction to set possible improvement, and when experience is not retained, among savages, infancy to perpetual, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. The man who has no imagination has no wings. The love with a man can smile in trouble, can either gather strength from distress, to grow brave by reflection. 'Tis the business little minds of shrink. He whose heart is firm, and whose conscience approves his conduct, will pursue his principles unto death. I try to do the right thing at the right time. There may be little things that usually make a difference between winning and losing. It's the little things. Great deeds are usually wrought at great risks. Prosperity depends on you wanting to have you're having what you want. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. Never esteem anything as an advantage to you. It will make you break your word or lose your self-respect. If you're failing every now and again, it's a sign that you're doing anything very innovative. If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. Don't complain. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. Never play cards with a man called Doc. Never eat at a place called Mom's. And never sleep with a woman whose troubles are worse than your own. Less is more. All things are difficult before they are easy. It is not always plugging away at difficult and sticking it to one until he overcomes it, but rather, often by working on the one next to it. Certain people or certain things require to be approached, and it's approached on your angle. To subtle thought is an error may be give to arise a fruitful inquiry, and they can establish truths of great value. A subtle thought that is an error may yet give rise to fruitful inquiry that can establish truths and great value. If money be not thy servant, it will be thy master. Covetous man cannot be so properly be said to possess wealth as he may be said to possess him. One of the things I've learned the hard way is that it doesn't pay to get discouraged. Keeping busy and making optimism a way of life can restore your faith in yourself. In hierarchy, every employee tends to rise his level of incompetence. Those who know how to win are more numerous than those who know how to make proper use of their victories. Power is not revealed by striking hard or often, but by striking true. Millions saw the apple fall, but Newton was the one who asked, why? It's what you learn after you know it all that's important. Call it what you will. Incentives are what get people to work harder. What makes a good follower? The single most important characteristic may well be the willingness to tell the truth. The willingness to tell the truth. In a world of growing complexity, leaders are increasingly depending on their subordinates for good information, whether the leaders want to hear it or not. Followers who tell the truth and leaders who listen are in an unbeatable combination. Riches do not consist in the possession of treasures, but the use made of them. The best computer is a man, and it's not only that he can be mass-produced, but unskilled labor. A hunch is creativity trying to tell you something. Any fool can make things bigger, more complex, and more violent. It takes a touch of genius and a lot of courage to move it into the opposite direction. A person interested in success has to learn to view failure as a healthy, inevitable part of process that will get you to the top. Genius is the ability to take something difficult and make it simple. Good judgment comes from the experience, and experience usually comes from bad judgment. But a man's reach should exceed his grasp, and what's heaven for? But a man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's heaven for? A way to develop self-confidence is to do the thing that you fear and get a record of successful experiences behind you. Destiny is not a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. And it's not a thing to be waited for, it's a thing to be achieved. Believe nothing merely because you have been told. Do not believe what the teacher tells you merely out of respect by the teacher or for the teacher, but whatsoever after due to examination and analysis you find to be kind, conducive to the good and benefit and welfare of all beings. That doctrine believe and cling to. Take it to your guide. You can do very little with faith, but you can do nothing without it. When you follow your bliss, doors will open you that would you not have thought of before. That would be doors where you wouldn't have be a door for anyone else. When you follow this bliss, when you follow your bliss, doors will open where you would not have thought there would be doors, and where there wouldn't be a door for anyone else. The truth that many people never understand until it's too late is that the more you try to avoid suffering, the more you suffer, because smaller and more insignificant things begin to torture you in proportion to your fear of being hurt. You can get a lot farther with a kind word and a gun than a kind word alone. A man without a purpose is like a ship without a rudder, a waif of nothing, a no man. A purpose in life is having it. Throw such a strength of mind and a muscle into your work, and throw your strength and muscle into the work that God has given you. Where shall I begin? Please your majesty, he asked. Begin at the beginning, the king said, gravely, and go till you come to the end, and then stop. Perseverance alone does not assure success. No amount of stalking will lead to the game in the field that has none. For myself, I am an optimist. It does not seem to be much of being anything else. For myself, I am an optimist, and it does not seem to be much of anything else. Nothing in the world can take the place of it. Persistence. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination are the omnipotent. Persistence and determination are the omnipotent. Iron rusts from disuse. Iron rusts from disuse. Stagnant water loses purity and cold weather becomes frozen. Even so does enacting sap the vigor of your mind. Believe those who are seeking the truth. Doubt those who find it. The only safe thing is to take a chance. Play safe and you are dead. Taking risks is the essence of good work, and the difference between safe and bold can be defined by yourself, since no one else knows what you are hoping when you embark on anything. Sometimes you have to play along, and times you'll be able to play like yourself. It is a common experience that a problem is difficult as the night resolves to the morning after a committee of sleep has worked on it. Sometimes you have to play for a long time to be able to play like yourself. You have to play for a long time to be able to play like yourself. Small opportunities are often the beginning of great enterprises. If you're making mistakes, you're not trying hard enough. If you're not making mistakes, you're not trying hard enough. Failure is instructive. The person who really thinks learns quite as much more as the failures as from his successes. Luck is the residue of design. Speak the truth and do not yield to anger. Give and thou art, ask for little. And these 3 steps, though will go near to the gods. Speak the truth. Do not yield to anger, and give. These are the 3 steps that will get you nearer to the gods. Nothing can produce out of nothing. When you have eliminated the impossible, that which remains, however improbable, there must be the truth. You can build a reputation on what you're going. You can't build a reputation on what you're going to do. The winds and waves are almost on the side of the ablest, or only on the side of the ablest navigators. The winds and waves are always on the side of the ablest navigators. Annual income, 20 pounds. Annual expenditure, 19 pounds. 6 and 6. Result happiness. Annual income, 20 pounds. Annual expenditure, 20 pounds. 0 and 6. Result misery. Don't accept the dog's admiration as conclusive evidence that you're wonderful. Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. The world is full of willing people, some willing to work and the rest willing to let them. I respect a man who knows distinctly that what he wishes. The greater part of all mischief of the world arises from the fact that men do not sufficiently understand their own aims. They have undertaken to build a tower and spend more labor on the foundation that would be necessary to erect a hut. They cannot play with the animal in without becoming wholly animal, play the falsehood without forfeiting the right to truth, play with the cruelty without losing your sensitivity of mind. He who wants to keep his garden tidy doesn't reserve a plot for weeds. My weakness has always been to prefer my large intention of an unskillful artist to the trivial intention of an accomplished one. In other words, I am more interested in the high ideals of a feeble executant than the high execution of a feeble thinker. I have the simplest tastes. I have always satisfied with the best, and I have the simplest tastes. I'm always satisfied with the best. We are wiser than we know. Happiness is a butterfly which, when pursued, it's always beyond our grasp, in which you'll sit down quietly, may it alight upon you. There is a tide in the affairs of men, from which taken out on the flood leads out into fortune, amid all voyages of their life, is bound to shallows and their miseries. There is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at flood leads on to fortune. Amid all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries. I find that great things in the world is not so much where we stand as to what direction we are moving. We must sail sometimes without the winds and sometimes against it. And with all we must sail. It's not adrift or lie at anchor. I must have dreams and I must have nightmares, but I have conquered my nightmares because I have my dreams. Trifles make perfections, and perfection itself is no trifle. Success without honor is unseasoned dish. And without satisfy hunger, but it won't taste good. Success without honor is an unseasoned dish. It will satisfy your hunger, but it won't taste good. Experience is not what happens to you. It's what you do with what happens to you. Nothing's built on stone, it's built on sand, and we must build on the sand from where there is stone. Nothing is built on stone. All is built on sand. But we must build as if the sand were stoned. A man must be big enough to admit his mistakes, smart enough to profit from them, and strong enough to correct them. Nothing will ever be attempted if all possible objections was first to be overcome. There is only one success: to be able to spend your life in your own way. The most pathetic person in the world is someone who has sight but has no vision. If you're going to learn what you don't want to, you ain't going to learn what you don't want to know. If I were asked to give what I consider the single most useful bit of advice for all humanity, it would be this: expect trouble as an inevitable part of life. Look it squarely in the eye and say, I will be bigger than you, and you cannot defeat me. If men could regard this event as their own lives more open-minded, the world frequently discovers that they did not really desire the things they failed to obtain. The highest reward for a man's toil is not what he gets, but for what he becomes by it. Practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. It takes as much stress to be success as it does to be a failure. In the fight between you and the world, back the world. There is always an easy solution in every human problem, neat, plausible, and wrong. Imagination will often carry us to worlds that never were, but without it, we go nowhere. A timid person is frightened before danger, a coward during a time, and a courageous person is afterwards. A habit cannot be tossed out of the window. It must be coaxed down, and the stairs a step at a time. The stairs a step at a time. Mishaps are like knives, either to serve us or cut us as we grasp them by the blade or the handle. The most powerful warriors are patience and time. The most powerful warriors is patience and time. The greatest glory in living lies is not never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Everybody knows that if you're too careful, you are so occupied in being careful that you are sure to stumble over something. If you're too careful, you're sure to stumble over something. A professional man is he who can do his best at the time when it doesn't particularly feel like doing it. The man is he who can drive himself further once his efforts gets painful to the man who will win. Do continue to believe with your feelings and for your work and taking a part of the greatest, and more strongly you cultivate this belief, and the more will reality in the world go forth from it. Doing the best at this moment, put it to your best place for the next moment. There are no menial jobs, only menial attitudes. Mistakes are the portals for discovery. The pupil who is never required to do what he cannot do, never does what he can do. God doth need either man's work, his own gifts, whose best bear mild jokes and serve him best, his state and kindly. God doth not need either man's work on his own gifts, he whose best bear his own mild yoke, they serve him best, his statute kingly, thousand at his bidding speed, at post or land or ocean without rest, they also serve, they only stand and wait. Never tell people how to do things, tell them what you want them to achieve, and they will surprise you with their ingenuity. There are two kinds of failures, those who thought and never did, and those who did and never thought. Obstacles are those faithful things that we see when you take your eyes off your goal. Problems are only opportunities in work clothes. Use your talent you possess. The woods must be very silent, the birds sang there except those that sang best. Use your talents you possess. Use your talents you possess. The woods would be very silent if no birds sang there except those that sang best. Success usually came from those who were too busy to be looking for it. I would rather fail in a cause than ultimately triumph, and a triumph in cause will ultimately fail. One should not increase beyond the necessary the number of entities required to explain anything. One should not increase beyond what is necessary the number of entities required to explain anything. When I am working on a problem, I never think about a beauty when I have finished. If the solution is not beautiful, I know it is wrong. Merely have an open mind is nothing. The objective is opening the mind and opening your mouth and to shut it again on something solid. Blessed is the man who, as having nothing to say, abstains from giving us wordy evidence of the fact. Curiosity endows people who have it with the generosity of argument and serenity and cheerful willingness to let life take the form will. Ideals won't keep. Something must be done about them. When people keep telling you of what you cannot do, when people keep telling you that you can't do a thing, the kind is to try it. When people tell you that you can't do a thing, you kind of like to try it. When someone says you can't do it, you kind of like to try it. Never grow a wishbone where your backbone ought to be. Nobody can give you a feel of inferior without your consent. Kind words are short and easy to speak, but their echoes are truly endless. Commit yourself to a dream. Nobody tries to do something great but fails in total failure. Why? Because you can always rest assured and succeeded in life's most important battle. He defeated the fear of trying. You can be discouraged by failure, and you can learn from it. So go ahead and make mistakes. Make all you can, because remember that where you'll find success is on the far side. I'm always doing which I cannot do, in order I may learn how to do it. Always do sober what you said you'd do drunk, and that will reach you to keep your mouth shut. There is nothing more difficult than take a hand, more perilous conduct, the more uncertain of success is to like to lead in the introduction of a new order of things. Diamonds are nothing more than chunks of coal that stuck to their jobs. Ambition can creep as well as soar. If you work upon marble, it will perish. If you work upon brass, time will efface it. If we were temples, we would crumble into dust. But if we work upon immortal minds and instill them in just principles, we are often then engraving that upon tablets that no time will efface, but will brighten the bright into all eternity. The best leaders are all of the ones that people do not know exist. They turn out to be each other, and they say we did it ourselves. They can do all because they think they can. White, a blank page or canvas, so many possibilities. We're all proud of making little mistakes. It gives us the feeling that we don't make big ones. People have known to achieve more in the result of working with others than against them. Four things come not back, but words spoken. They spin arrow to past and neglected opportunities. Anywhere is walking distance if you've got the time. Anywhere is walking distance if you've got the time. A jest prosperity lies in the ear him who hears it, never in the tongue of him that makes it. Trust yourself. You know more than you think you do. I never sooner failed than amongst the greatest. For everything you have missed, you have gained something else. If you don't make a total commitment for whatever you're doing, then you start looking to bail out the first time the boat starts leaking. It's tough enough getting the boat to shore when everybody's rowing, let alone when a guy stands up and starts putting on his jacket. When you reach for the stars, you may not quite get them, but you won't come up with the handfuls of mud either. When you reach for the stars, you may not quite get them, but you won't come up with a handful of mud either. When your will defies fear, your heart applauds to the brain. When dust thou throws gauntlet down to fate, when honor scorns to compromise with death, this is heroism. Let fear be a counselor and not a jailer. Envy, among other ingredients, has a mixture of love and justice in it. We are more angry and undeserved than deserved good fortune. Things don't change, but by and by our wishes change. Having once decided to achieve a certain task, achieve at all costs of tedium and distaste. To gain self-confidence of having accomplished a tiresome labor is immense. He who desires but acts not breeds pestilence. The artist is nothing without a gift, but the gift is nothing without work. God gave us our memories so that we might have roses in December. No artist ahead of this time. No artist is ahead of his time. He is his time. He's just that others are behind the time. Others are behind the time. You can never step into the same river twice, for new waters are always flowing onto you. More perfectly finished is when nothing can be added to it, nothing can be taken away. Silence is the true friend that never betrays you. How often misused words generate misleading thoughts. Beware the fury of a patient man. A ship in a harbor is safe. A ship in a harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are built for. What counts is not necessarily the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. It is most preparity against. It's like the promontory against the waves continually break, but it stands firm, tames the fury of the water around it. Never mistake motion for action. The reward of things well done is to have done it. Advice is like snow. The softer it falls, the longer it dwells upon, the deeper it sinks into the mind. You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. You trust your mother, but you cut the cards. When you reach the top, keep climbing. You can observe a lot by watching. My father, Franklin D. Roosevelt, gave me the hints on speech making. Be sincere, be brief, and then be seated. Be sincere, be brief, and be seated. You've got to take initiative and play your game in a decisive set, confidence and indifference. You've got to take the initiative and play your game. Take the initiative and play your game in a decisive set. Confidence is the difference. The codfish lays 10,000 eggs and a homely hen lays one. The codfish never cackles to tell you what she's done, and so we scorn the codfish, which the humble hen we prize. Which one goes to show that it pays to advertise? All human wisdom is summed up in 2 words: wait and hope. The codfish lays 10,000 eggs, and the homely hen lays one. The codfish never cackles to tell you what she's done, and so we scorn the codfish while we humble the hen we prize. Which one goes to show that it pays to advertise? To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn appreciation of honest critics and endure betrayal of false friends? To appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, and to leave the world a little bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is the meaning of success. Chapter 4. The Life of the Mind. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Nothing else in the world, not all the enemies, is so powerful as the idea whose time has come. We are shaped by our thoughts. We become what we think. I'd rather learn from one bird how to sing than to teach 10,000 stars how not to dance. The great instrument of moral good is the imagination. To be surprised, to wonder, is to begin to understand. Knowledge is power. It is impossible to defeat an ignorant man in an argument. I am the wisest man alive, for I know one thing, and that is that I know nothing. Knowledge can be conveyed, but with not wisdom. It cannot be found, it cannot be lived, it is possible to be carried by it. Miracles can be performed with it, but it cannot be expressed in words and taught. Skepticism and chastity of an intellect, and it is shameful to surrender too soon or to the first comer. There is nobility in preserving and coolly and proudly though long youth until a last of a ripeness of instinct and discretion. It can be a safety exchange for fidelity and happiness. Others have been here before me, and I have walked in their footsteps. The books I have read were composed in generations of fathers and sons, mothers and daughters, teaching and disciples. I'm a sum total of their experiences, their quests, and so are you. If we value the pursuit of knowledge, we must be free to follow wherever the searching may lead us. Search may lead us. The free mind is no barking dog to be tethered on one-footed chain. The test of first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold up 2 opposed ideas in the mind at the same time, still retain ability to function. One should, for example, be able to see the things are of hopeness, and yet determined to make them otherwise. It is a remark of an educated mind to be able to entertain thought without accepting it. Humor is a serious thing. I like to think about it as one of the greatest, earliest natural resources, which must be preserved at all costs. When you read classics, you do not see the book more as you did before, you see more than there ever was before. Mediocrity knows nothing higher than itself, but talent instantly recognizes genius. When you read a classic, you do not see the book more than you did before. You see more in you than there was before. Life beats down and crushes the soul, but the art reminds you that you have one. I do not feel obliged to believe that the same God who has endowed us with the sense, reason, and intellect has indeed the farrago their use. Exuberance is beauty. Writing is a struggle against silence. Talk sense to a fool and he calls you foolish. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. You cannot teach a man anything, but you can only help him find it within himself. I've always thought that actions of men is the best interpreters of their thoughts. Perhaps the most valuable result in all education is the ability to make yourself do the thing that you have to do when it ought to be done, and whether you like it or not is to get it done. People demand freedom of speech to make up their own freedom of thought which they avoid. People demand freedom of speech to make up their own freedom of thought which they avoid. Anyone who conducts an argument by appealing to authority is not using his intelligence, he's just using his memory. Where so many hours have been spent in convincing myself that I am right, is there not some reason to fear I may be wrong? Prejudices is well known and most fields eradicated from the hearts whose soil has never been loosened or fertilized by education. They grow there, firm as weeds among rocks. The test to use of a man's education is that he finds pleasure in the exercise of his mind. I find the great part of the information I found acquired by looking up something and finding something else on the way. The writer wants to be understood much more than he wants to be respected and praised or even loved, and that perhaps is what makes him different from others. Fantasy, abandoned by reason, produces impossible monsters united with it. She is the mother of the arts and the origin of the marvels. Paradoxically, though it may seem, it is nonetheless true that life imitates art far more than art imitates life. Genius is nothing but a great aptitude of patience. People are always so boring when they band together. You have to be along to develop all the idiosyncrasies that make a person interesting. Creative minds have to know to survive any sort of bad training. Creative minds have been known to survive any sort of bad training. An intelligent man is the one who says simple things in a difficult way. An artist is the man who says a difficult thing in a simple way. Conception, my boy, fundamental brain work of what makes all difference is art and difference in art. The job of the artist is always to deepen the mystery. Art is made to disturb. Science is to reassurances. There's only one valuable thing in art, the thing that you cannot explain. Precision is not reality. Life is brief. Art is long. The purpose of life is to lay bare questions which have not been hidden by the answers. The invariable mark of the wisdom is to see the miracles in the common. Poor are the people who does not surpass his master. Lord, grant that I am, and I always desire more than I can accomplish. Creativity allows yourself to make mistakes. Art is knowing which ones to keep. In every man's heart there's a secret nerve that answers to the vibration of beauty. Beauty in things lies in the mind which contemplates them. The best and most beautiful things in the life cannot be seen, not touched, but felt in the heart. There are flowers everywhere, and who's to bother you to look? God gives us the grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change things that should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish from one or the other. Do not say little in many words, but a great deal in few. Why sculptures is to the block of marble, education is to soul. Real education should educate us out of the self into something far finer, into selflessness, which links us into humanity. To educate a man is to unfit him to be a slave. To educate a man is to unfit him to be a slave. No man can be called friendless who has God and his companionship of good books. By words, the mind is winged. Wise men talk about they have something to say. Fools talk because they have to say something. A little learning is a dangerous thing. Drink deep, or taste not the Persian spring. Wise men talk because they have something to say. Fools talk because they have to say something. Be not a slave of words. The confidence of ignorance will always overcome indecision in knowledge. Integrity without knowledge is weak and useless, and knowledge without integrity is dangerous and dreadful. All wish to possess knowledge, but few, comparatively speaking, are willing to pay the price. True wisdom is less presuming than folly, and the wise man doubteth offeth, that changeth his mind. The fool is abstinent, and that doubteth not. He knoweth all things in his own ignorance. True wisdom is less presuming than folly. The wise man doubteth often and change his mind. The fool is obstinate and doubteth not. He knoweth all things but his own ignorance. What really knocks me out is a book that when you're all done reading it, you wish the author would have was a terrific friend of yours and you could call him up on the phone whenever you felt like it. That doesn't happen much though. What really knocks me knocks me out is a book that when you're all done reading it, you wish the author that you wrote it was a terrific friend of yours and you could call him up on the phone whenever you felt like it. And that doesn't happen much, though. The art of a people is a true mirror to their minds. The art of the people is a true mirror of their minds. Genius may have its limitations, but stupidity is not thus handicapped. He who is studied through revenge keepeth his own wounds green, which otherwise would heal and do well. The first man to abuse language instead of his fist was the founder of civilization. Beware of the man of a single book. It requires wisdom to understand wisdom. The music is nothing if the audience is deaf. Happy the man who has broken the chains which hurt the mind and given up worrying once and for all. It requires wisdom to understand wisdom. The music is nothing if the audience is deaf. Human history becomes more and more a race between education and catastrophe. Human history is becoming more and more a race of education and catastrophe. Genius ain't anything more than elegant common sense. Genius is nothing more than some elegant common sense. To act with common sense according to the moment is the best wisdom I know, and the best philosophy is to do one's duties, take the world as it comes, submit respectfully to one's lot, bless the goodness that has given us so much happiness with it, whatever it is, and despise affection. If you make people think that they're thinking, they'll love you, but if you really make them think, they'll hate you. He who asks a fool for 5 minutes, but he does not ask remains a fool forever. A good listener is not only popular everywhere, but after a while he gets to know something. Education makes people easy to lead and difficult to drive, easy to govern but impossible to enslave. A correct answer is like an affectionate kiss. Wisdom is not a product of schooling, but a lifelong attempt to acquire it. A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell. He can never tell where his influence stops. To teach is to learn twice. Do not quench the inspiration of your imagination. Do not become the slave of your model. Style can complicate things, seem simple, and simple things complicated. Fashion change, but style is forever. You should be careful to get out of your experience only the wisdom of what it is and stop there. Lest be like the cat that sits down on a hot stove. We shall never sit down on a hot stove lid again, and that as well, but also she shall never sit down on a cold one anymore either. Truth is a science that can be defined as the working hypothesis best suited to open the way to a better one. The convention of view serves to protect us from a painful job of thinking. The conventional view serves us to protect us from a painful job of thinking. A man thinks that by mouthing hard words he understands hard things. The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell or a hell of heaven. I quote others in order to better express myself. It is better to be highly spirited even though one makes more mistakes than to be narrow-minded and too prudent. Poetry begins in delight and ends in wisdom. There's no squabble so violent as to between people who accept an idea yesterday and whose will not accept the same idea tomorrow. A great memory is never made synonymous with wisdom any more than a dictionary would be called a treatise. Wisdom is oftentimes nearer when we stoop than when we soar. True wit is nature to advantage dressed. We oft was thought, but nearer so were expressed. True wit is nature to advantage dressed. What oft thought, but nearer so well dressed. It is a good thing for an uneducated man to read books of quotation. Bartlett's Familiar Quotations is an admirable book. Bartlett's Familiar Quotations is an admirable book, and it's studied attentively. The quotations are engraved upon memory, gives you good thoughts, and also has an anxious to read the authors to look for more. Sir Winston Churchill. It is a good thing for an uneducated man to read books of quotations. Bartlett's Familiar Quotations is an admirable book. I've studied it attentively, and the quotations are engraved upon the memory, gives you good thoughts. And when quotations are engraved upon your memory, it gives you good thoughts. They also make you anxious to read the authors and look for more. Almost every wise saying has an opposite one, no less wise to balance it. Absurdity, N, is a noun. Absurdity is a noun, a statement or belief manifested inconsistently with one's own opinion. A fool wonders, the wise man asks. Complaint always back into an echo from the ends of the world, but silence strengthens us. There lives more faith and honest doubt, believe me, than in half the creeds. The ultimate result of shielding men from the effects of folly is to fill the world with fools. The liar's punishment is not only the least that is not to be believed, but he cannot believe anyone else. The liar's punishment is not in the least that he is not believed, but that he cannot believe anyone else. Contradiction is not a sign of falsity, nor a lack of contradiction of a sign of truth. To be positive is mistaken at the top of one's voice. I do not agree to what you say, but I will defend to death your right to say it. I never know whether to pity or congratulate a man on coming to his senses. Some books are undeservedly forgotten. None are undeservedly remembered. True words are not always pretty. Pretty words are not always true. True words are not always pretty. True words are not always pretty. And pretty words are not always true. So true words are not always pretty. and pretty words are not always true. Truth lies within a little and certain compass, but error is immense. Never chase a lie, let it alone, and it will run itself to death. A man may learn wisdom even from a foe. Nobody can be so amusingly arrogant as a young man who has just discovered an old idea and thinks it's his own. The opposite of a correct statement is a false statement. That opposite of profound truth with being another profound truth. A belief is not true because it is useful. A belief is not true because it is useful. Its scarcest truth, the supply has always been the excess of the demand. I do not believe today everything I believed yesterday, and I wonder what would I believe tomorrow, everything I believe today. And I wonder, will I believe tomorrow everything I believe today? A belief is not merely an idea that the mind possesses, it's an idea that possesses the mind. A belief is not merely an idea that the mind possesses, it is an idea that possesses the mind. God is in the details. When a man you like switches from what he said a year ago or 4 years ago, and a broad-minded person has courage enough to change his mind with changing conditions, when a man you don't like does it, he is a liar who has broken his promises. A lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to get its pants on. Human reason is like a drunken man on horseback. Set it up on one side and it tumbles over to the other. A passionate hate of the idea of being with it. I think an artist has always to be out one step out of his time. I passionately hate the idea of being with it. I think an artist has always to be out of step with his time. Any great work or art redapts time and space, and the measure of its success is to intent in which it makes an inhabitant of the world, the extent in which invites you and it lets you breathe in a strange special air. Those who dream by night in dusty resins their minds wake up in the day filled with vanity. But the dreamers of the day are dangerous men, and they act upon their dreams with open eyes, and they make it possible. Truth that told with bad intent beats all the lies you can't invent. Truth that's told with bad intent beats all the lies you can invent. Keep me away from the wisdom which does not cry, the philosophy which does not laugh, and the greatness which does not bow before children. Teach me greatness that does not bow before children. Man's mind, once stretched by a new idea, never regains the original dimension. Don't talk unless you can improve the silence. The wastebasket is the writer's best friend. Wherein the wisdom have lost in knowledge, whereas the knowledge have lost in the information. Those who will not reason are bigots, and those who cannot are fools, and those who dare not are slaves. The power of accurate observation is commonly called cynicism by those who have not got it. To the artist, there is never anything ugly in nature. Even in the desolate wilderness, stars can still shine. Peace is not a relationship of nations. It is a condition of mind brought by serenity of soul. Peace is not merely an absence of war. It's a state of mind. Lasting peace can come only from a peaceful people. The sage wears the rough clothes and holds the jewel in his heart. Heart melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. Do not most moving moments of our lives find us without words? Do not the most moving moments of our lives find us without words? It is only by introducing the young to great literature, drama, and music, to the excitement of great science, that we open them to the possibilities that lie within the human spirit, enable them to see the visions and dreams. Politics and politicians, government and statesmen. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty in ourselves and our prosperity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that the men are all created equal, and that they are endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the Declaration of Independence is we hold the truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed of the Creator with the certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I've sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of a man. All the great things are simple, and many can be expressed in a single word: freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, hope. A nation which makes the final sacrifice for life and freedom does not get beaten. Only our individual faith in freedom can keep us free. If life is so dear or peace are so sweet, at the purchased at a price of chains of slavery, forbid it, Almighty God. I know not the course of others may take, but as for me, give me my liberty or give me death. Those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must, like men, undergo the fatigue in supporting it. Power tends to corrupt. The absolute power corrupts absolutely. Good order for the foundation of all things. Good order is the foundation of all things. Give me liberty to know, to utter, and to argue freely according to my conscience above all liberties. All politics is local. They can give up an essential liberty to obtain little temporary safety, deserves neither liberty nor safety. If you once forfeit your confidence of your fellow citizens, you never regain their respect or esteem. If once you forfeit your confidence of your fellow citizens, you never regain their respect and esteem. You may fool all the people some of the time, or you can even fool some people all of the time, but you can't fool all the people all of the time. If you once forfeit the confidence of your fellow citizens, you can never regain their respect and esteem. You may fool all the some people some of the time, or even some people all of the time, but you'll never fool all the people all of the time. The language of the law must not be foreign to the ears of those who are to obey it. The conjurer also, the enslaved by war, shall their freedom lost all virtue lose. Politics is the art of looking for trouble, finding whether it exists or not, diagnosing it incorrectly, and applying the wrong remedy. The hardest thing about political campaigns is how to win without proving that you are unworthy of winning. Society of a sheep must be the time beget and government of wolves. A society of sheep must in time beget a government of wolves. Freedom is like a drink. If you take any at all, you might as well take enough to make you happy for a while. If liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. If we do not believe in freedom of speech and those we despise, we do not believe in it at all. Most people do not really want freedom because freedom involves responsibility. Most people are frightened of responsibility. You can only protect your liberties in the world by protecting the other man's freedom. You can only be free if I am free. The measure of a man is what he does with the power. All the necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. A single death is a tragedy. 1,000,000 deaths is a statistic. Mankind is at its best when it is most free. Mankind is at its best when it is most free. This will be clear if we grasp the principle of liberty. We must recall the basic principle of liberty is the freedom of choice, which saying many have on their lips, but few in their hands, few in their minds. The buck stops here. The buck stops here. The first method of estimating intelligence of a ruler is not to look at the men he has found around him. The first method of estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men that he has around him. The language of the law must not be foreign to the ear of those who are there to obey. Being powerful is like being a lady. If you have to tell people that you are, then you aren't. A leader of a man or an actor is a crisis. He almost acts subconsciously, then he thinks about the reasons of his actions. A leader of a man of action in a crisis almost always acts subconsciously and then thinks of the reasons for his action. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. It is better to die on your feet than to live on your knees, and you can discover what your enemy fears most by observing means he uses to frighten you. The most essence of free government consists of considering offices. The very essence of a free government consists of considering offices as public trust bestowed in the good of the country and not for the benefits of the individual or a party. The free exploring minds of the individual human is the most valuable thing in the world, and this I would fight for. The freedom of the mind is to take any direction it wishes undirected, and this might fight against any idea, religion, government from which liberates or destroys the individual. Justice delayed is justice denied. I only ask to be free. The butterflies are free. A true greatness of nations in those qualities which constitute the greatness of the individual. The best use of laws is to teach men to trample bad laws under their feet. Politics is an inexact science. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men and women are created equal. No taxation without representation. No man above the law, and no man is below it, nor do we ask any man's permission when we require him to obey it. Obedience to the law is demanded, not asked as a favor. I must study politics. War of my sons must have liberty and study mathematics and philosophy. The people who value its privileges above its principles soon loses both. The people that values its privileges above its principles soon loses both. The right to be heard does not automatically include the right to be taken seriously. The death of democracy is most likely to be an assassination from ambush. It will be a slow extinction from empathy, indifference, and undernourishment. The man who strikes first admits that his ideas have given out. It is inaccurate to say I hate everything. I'm strongly in favor of common use, common sense, common honesty, common decency. This makes me favorable and ineligible for any public office. It is inaccurate to say I hate everything. I'm strongly in favor for common sense, common honesty, common decency, and this makes me forever ineligible for any public office. Freedom of the thought and the right to private judgment, it matters of conscience, driven from every corner of earth, direct from the course to be happy. To be a happy country is their last asylum. Let us cherish the noble guests and shelter them under the wings of universal toleration. There are few things, wholly evil and wholly good. Almost everything, especially of government policy, is an inseparable compound of the two, and that's our best judgment of the preponderance between them is continually demanded. Those who corrupt the public mind are just as evil as those who steal from the public purse. A man's feet should be planted in his country, but his eyes should survey the world. In politics, stupidity is not a handicap. Nothing in life is certain except death and taxes. I suppose slavery in this country because it exposed to kill it. Slavery is one of the most monsters of darkness, to whom the light of truth is death. The true republic men in the rights of nothing more, and women their rights and nothing less. The true republic men, their rights and nothing more. Women their rights and nothing less. I know not the what weapons World War III will be fought, but I do know that World War IV will be fighting with sticks and stones. Practical politics consist in ignoring facts. Practical politics consist in ignoring facts. Even when you have the laws been written down, and all the laws have been written down, when it's not always to remain unaltered. Toleration is good for all, or is it good for none? The whole history of the progress of human liberty shows that all concessions yet made to her august claims have been born of earnest struggle. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. For those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation, men are who crops without plowing up the ground, and they want rain without thunder and lightning. They want oceans without the awful roar of its many waters. In the country of the blind, the one-eyed man is a king. The law and the majestic equally forbids the rich, as well as for the poor, to sleep under the bridges and beg in the streets, and to steal bread. Cautious, careful people, always casting about to preserve their reputation of social standards, never can bring about the reform. Those who really earnest and willing to be anything or nothing of the world's estimation, and publicly and privately, and seize it in and out, avow their sympathies with despised ideas and their advocates, and bear the consequences. One man with courage is a majority. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Let the word go forth. Let the word go forth from the time and place to a friend and foe alike, that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century, tempered by war, disciplined by hard and bitter peace, proud to be an ancient heritage, and unwilling to witness or permit the slow undoing of this human rights to which this nation has always been committed, and to which we are committed today, at home and around the world. Let every nation know that whether the wishes are well or ill, let them pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, in order to assure survival and success of liberty. So let us begin anew, remembering that both sides of civility is not just a sign of weakness and sincerity, it always is the subject of proof. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate, and it will not be finished in the next 100 days, nor finished in the next 1,000 days, nor in the life of this administration, nor even perhaps in the lifetime of this planet. But let us begin. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. If mankind minus his one were one opinion, then mankind is more justified in silencing one more than one. If he had the power, would be justified in silencing mankind. Politicians is trained to the art of inexactitude. With words tend to be blunt or rounded because they have a cutting edge. They matter later to return to wound him. The politician is trained in the art of inexactitude. His words tend to be blunt and rounded because if they have a cutting edge, they may later return to wound him. Bad officials are elected by good citizens who do not vote. War is delightful to those who have no experience of it. You cannot simultaneously prevent and prepare for war. Man's capacity for justice makes democracy possible, but man's inclination to injustice makes democracy necessary. The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." Laws do not persuade just because they threaten. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Politics are small all over. The promise to build bridges even when there are no rivers. One cool judgment is worth a dozen hasty counsels. The thing is to supply light and not heat. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. The ministry of the poor can be caused by the laws of nature, but our institutions greater is our sin. Law is order, and good law is good order. Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains. One thinks himself as the master of others and still remains a great slave to they. How do they change come about? I do not know. What about the legitimate? The question I think I can answer. I took into account of only force, the effects derived from it. I should say, as long as people are compelled to obey and obeys, it does it well. As soon as it can shake off the yoke and shake it off, it does it better, regaining in liberty and same right it took it away. Either to justify it in resuming it, there will be no justification for those who took it away, but the social order and sacred right, which the basis of all other rights. Nevertheless, the right does not come from nature and must therefore be founded on conventions. Liberty is the right to silence. In some cases, nonviolence requires more militancy than violence. In the province of mind, In the province of the mind, what one believes to be true either is true or becomes true. Freedom is not our inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation, for it comes only once to these people. Those who have known freedom and then lost it have never known it again. The future days, which we seek to make secure, we look forward to the world founded upon the essential human freedoms. This first freedom is speech and expression. Everywhere in the world. The second freedom is a person to worship God in his own way. Everywhere in the world. Third freedom is from want, which translates into the world terms, which economic understandings, which will secure every nation in healthy peacetime life for its inhabitants everywhere in the world. The fourth is the freedom from fear, which translated in the world's terms means a worldwide reduction of armaments in such a thorough fashion no nation will be in position to commit an act of physical aggression against any neighbor anywhere in the world. The first freedom is speech and expression. The second freedom is freedom to worship God in any way you want. The third freedom is to translate your want into the world terms. The fourth freedom is fear. Of all times in time of the war, press should be free. Of all the times in a time of war, the press should be free. The greatest dangers in liberty lurk in insidious encroachment by men of zeal, well-meaning, but without understanding. You have not converted a man because you have silenced him. I know war as few as men living know it, and nothing to me is more revolting. I've long advocated a complete annihilation and very destructive on both sides to foe and rendered it useless as a means of settling international disputes. If a nation values anything more than freedom, it will lose freedom, and irony of that is that the comfort or money that values more will lose that too. Freedom is not more having than it does not connote. Freedom to in passing comprehension how humans beings It passes my comprehension how human beings, if they ever so experienced and are able, can delight in depriving other human beings of that precious right. The punishment, which is the wise suffer to refuse to take part of the government, is to live under the government of worse men. To give up the task of reforming society is to give up one's responsibility as a free man. We learn from history that we do not learn from history. We learn from history that we do not learn from history. Man does not give by words alone, despite the facts that sometimes he has to eat them. The most effective way of attacking vice is to expose the public ridicule. People can put up with rebukes, and they cannot bear being laughed at, but they prepare to be wicked, disliked, appearing ridiculous. The most effective way to attack the vice is to expose it to the public ridicule. People can put up with rebukes, but they cannot bear being laughed at. They are prepared to be wicked by the dislike appearing ridiculous. Freedom of man's capacity to take a hand in his own development. It is our capacity to mold ourselves. When people are free and they do as they please, they usually imitate each other. The united voice of millions cannot lend the smallest foundation to falsehood. When you are right, you cannot be too radical. When you are wrong, you cannot be too conservative. Hearsay is another word of freedom of thought. A government is big enough to give all that you want and big enough to take it all away. Men are not all hinged in stealing horses, but that horses may be stolen. Men are not hanged for stealing horses, but that horses may not be stolen. The basis of political systems and the right of people make to the alter the constitute to the government. The basis of our political system is that the right of the people is to make and to alter their constitutions of government. Freedom of the mind requires not even especially the absence of legal constraints, but the presence of alternative thoughts. The most successful tyranny is not only that use is forced to assure uniformity, but the one that removes the awareness of other possibilities. The hottest place in hells are reserved for those who, in times of great moral crisis, maintain their neutrality. America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we've destroyed ourselves. No one flower can ever symbolize this nation. America is a bouquet. Chapter 5. Proverbial Wisdom. A country can be judged by the quality of its proverbs. A handful of patience is worth more than a bushel of brains. It is easy to despise what we cannot get. A quiet fool is half a sage. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. It is thrifty to prepare today for the wants of tomorrow. Union gives strength. If you want to give God a good laugh, tell him your plans. Please all, and you will please none. Since the house is on fire, let us warm ourselves. People often grudge others what they cannot enjoy themselves. We often give our enemies the means of our own destruction. It is easy to be brave from a safe distance. Don't think that there are no crocodiles because the water is calm. Do not count your chickens before they hatched. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. An army of sheep led by a lion would defeat an army of lions led by a sheep. Procrastination is the thief of time. Beware, let loose the lose of substance by grasping at the shadow. Luck is like having a rice dumpling fly into your mouth. The best armor is to keep out of range. Men often applaud an imitation and hiss the real thing. Better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. When spiders unite, they can tie down a lion. Love is friendship set on fire. The death of a friend is an equivalent to the loss of a limb. Dance as if no one's watching. Sing as if no one's listening. And live every day as if it were your last. The reverse side also has a reverse side. At the end of the game, the king and the pawn go back to the same box. Older the fitter, the older the fiddler, the older the fitter, the older the fiddle, the sweeter the tune. Vision without action is daydream. Action without vision is a nightmare. The generous and bold have the best lives. Fear is only as deep as the mind allows. Turn your face to the sun and shadows fall behind you. To be damned by the devil is to be truly blessed. It is better to live one day as a lion than 1,000 days as a lamb. The church is closed. The church is close, but the road is icy. The tavern is far, and I will walk carefully. Water that does not move is always shallow. He who allows the day to pass without practicing generosity and enjoying life's pleasures is like a blacksmith bellows his breaths, but does not live. Be humble, for you are made of earth. You are made on earth. And be noble, for you are made of stars. It takes an entire village to raise a child. Fear less, hope more, eat less, chew more, whine less, breathe more, talk less, say more, hate less, love more, and all good things are yours. Slow and steady wins the race. By asking for the impossible, you obtain the best possible. Call on God, but row away from the rocks. If you must play, decide the 3 things that start: the rules of the game, the stakes, and the quitting time. Even a clock that does not work is right twice a day. He who hurries cannot walk with dignity. Don't throw away the old bucket until you know whether the new one holds water. It's a final straw that broke the camel's back. Tell me and I'll forget. Show me and I may remember. Involve me and I'll understand. What's good with the goose is good for the gander. He who lies down with the dogs rises with fleas. A man is not honest simply because he's never had a chance to steal. The innkeeper loves the drunkard, but not for the son-in-law. Time in the words can be recalled, even if I was only yesterday. Time in words can't be recalled, even if it was only yesterday. You won't help shoots grow by pulling them up higher. You won't help shoots grow by pulling them up higher. Cursing the weather is never a good farming. Too many cooks spoil the broth. Ask for experience rather than the learned. Ask the experienced rather than the learned. Waste not, want not. Tomorrow is often the busiest time of the year. When I rest, I rust. Revenge is the dish, best served cold. He who is outside of his door has the hardest part of the journey behind him. Nobody's sweetheart is ugly. The wagon rests in winter, the sleigh in summer, the horse never. Birds of a feather flock together. Lend a horse and you may have back his skin. Lend a horse and you may have back his skin. You can't hatch chickens from the fried eggs. Care and not fine stables makes a good horse. Trees often transplanted seldom prosper. Roasted pigeons will not fly into one's mouth. The early bird catches the worm. One meets destiny often in the road he takes to avoid it. One meets destiny often in the road he takes to avoid it. When the cat's away, the mice will play. All cats appear gray in the dark. Curiosity killed the cat. You can't dance at 2 weddings at the same time, nor can you sit in 2 horses with one behind. When rats infest the palace, a lame cat is better than the swiftest horse. Let sleeping dogs lie. There are plenty more fish in the sea, and whoever gossips will gossip about you. Don't change horses in the middle of the stream. You can lead horse to water, but you can't make him drink. It's too late to close the stable door after the horse has bolted. Even the candle seller dies in the dark. A road to a friend's house is never long. Speak silver, reply gold. When 2 elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. He who does nothing makes no mistake. He who does nothing makes no mistakes. When 1 door shuts, 100 open. The greedy man stores all but friendship. If a little money does not go out, great money will come in. If a little money does not go out, great money will not come in. A people without history is like a wind of on the buffalo grass. A people without history is like the wind on the buffalo grass. Joy shared is twice the joy. Sorrow shared is half the sorrow. Joy shared is twice the joy. Sorrow shared is half the sorrow. Lee said, soonest mended. A rich child often sits on a poor mother's lap. A fool and his money are soon parted. Worry gives a small thing to a big shadow. The gods help them that help themselves. Sparrows that emulate peacocks are likely to break a thigh. Do not judge a man until you have walked 2 moons in his moccasins. However long the night, the dawn will break. Appearances often are deceiving. Big mouthfuls often choke. Familiarity breeds contempt. Pride goeth before destruction, and haughty spirit before a fall. If you want to think you are wise, if you want people to think you are wise, agree with them. Blessed is the man who can laugh at himself, and he will never cease to be amused.